A very good morning to you all. Thank you indeed for joining today's EU Clusters talk on crisis preparedness. We're going to talk today about how to build fitter for the future, building resilience and preparedness in Europe's pharma and healthcare sectors. Now, everyone joining the webinar this morning, I'm sure knows that the cluster organizations really reacted very quickly during the COVID pandemic and were able to be engaged in supporting the development of and the supply of personal protective equipment, respirators, other medical equipment, and so on, as well as vaccines, and that great push that we saw with everyone pulling together. But now it's time to look forward. So we have a packed agenda for you this morning. We are, as you can see, going to have to get through quite a lot today. We will hear from the European Commission. We will also hear about international cooperation in health. We will have our panel debate where, of course, you can ask questions. We will then also be hearing from the Ukrainian colleagues, as well as the usual roundup of news from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform and funding opportunities as well. So let's hand over, I think, straight away. We've got so much to get through that I think we'll just go through quickly the usual housekeeping rules. That is, use the chat function to comment or share links. We will be sharing links throughout the webinar. You can also use the Q&A to ask questions. We're asking speakers to keep their microphones and their cameras off and on mute. But when you do want to take to the floor, remember to raise your hand if you would like the floor and unmute your microphone. If you want to ask questions on video, you can also do that, but please just do ask us via the chat function. And do note, of course, that this session is being recorded and will be ongoing for publication on the ECCP website at a later date. So I think that covers everything. You can see and use the chat if you have any queries at all going through our discussion. But I'm now going to hand over to Nina Hopman, who is from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. Nina, to tell us all about what's the latest news.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and hello everybody to this EU Cluster Talks. We have some news to share from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform and from the European Commission. First of all, if you're interested in hosting one of the Clusters Meet Region workshops, the call of expression of interest is open until the 29th of July. These events can be hosted in the second half of 2022 or in 2023, and they are events to bring together national and regional clusters and policymakers to share experiences and to talk to each other, learn from each other of how to make good use of clusters to strengthen the industrial ecosystems or to discuss disruptions in our supply chain and to drive the green and digital resilience and to transition and to build resilience. So if you're interested, look at the website from the ECCP to read all about how to express your interest in hosting such a workshop. Then the deadline for the EU matchmaking with Singapore is extended. So there are two calls for expression of interest open, one for a European delegation of representatives from cluster organizations that could be from various industrial sectors who want to participate, as well as for small and medium-sized enterprises who wish to participate in the EU-Singapore matchmaking, also in various sectors. And the new deadline is the 17th of July. Then also interesting, there's an open consultation, have you say, for the state aid exemptions for small amounts of aid. So the de minimis aid regulation allows exemptions from state aid control of small amounts. And these rules are going to be to expire on the 31st of December 23. And this initiative aims to be revised to update the expected amounts in the light of inflation and improve transparency. And you can give feedback to these exemptions and to the rules and plans until the 25th of July. You can go via the website of the European Commission and the link that is saved in the chat. Then in terms of the security union, the Commission welcomed an agreement on new rules to enhance the resilience of critical entities. As a part of the work to build the security union, the new rules will strengthen the resilience of critical infrastructure to a range of threats that could include natural hazards or public health emergencies like the COVID pandemic. And for example, these rules are related to regular risk assessment, to better cooperation among member states, or with compliance. You can also find more information on this in a press release from the European Commission. Looking at the consequences of the war in Ukraine, there is more support with the flexible assistance to territories, and for the implementation of the cohesion policy investments. That means that the package that adopted by the European Commission allows more support, for example, for welcome displaced people, with additional pre-financing payments or cross-financing possibilities, and at least 30% of the resources should go to local authorities and civil society organizations that operate in local communities. Also, you find more information in the press release on the European Commission website. Then there is a private matchmaking solution for transporting Ukraine's produce. Transporian, which is an EU-based transportation management platform, will launch a matchmaking event addressed to exporters, importers, traders, logistics service providers, and carriers to exchange and match capacities, modalities, freight rates, transit times, and other details. There's a webinar that will take place on the 14th of July at 3:30 CET, for which you can register until the 13th of July, and you find more information on the website, transporian.com/solidaritylanes. And last but not least, we wanted to share with you that the Commission presented the new European Innovation Agenda to spearhead the new innovation wave. This innovation agenda aims to position Europe at the forefront of the new wave of deep tech innovation and startup, and it will help Europe to develop new technologies to address the most pressing societal challenges. More information also on the website from the European Commission. Thank you, and back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, Nina. A very busy month indeed, and we'll hear more from Nina later on with more funding opportunities. With that, we've got joining us today Hubert Gams, Deputy Director General for the Directorate General for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs, DG GROW to you and me. And also, importantly for today, the head of the task force for the industrial scale-up of the COVID-19 vaccines and therapeutics. Hubert, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I know you're going to tell us a bit about Hera and crisis preparedness on the European level, as well as the new innovation agenda for Europe. So I will hand over the floor to you, sir. We look forward to your points. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and good morning to everybody. I fear that the mounting COVID cases and the war in Ukraine will not really allow us to relax too much during the summer. However, I think it's nevertheless a good time to have a reflection together with you on where we are in terms of resilience and preparedness in the healthcare sector. Many of you who are present today reacted very quickly last year when we needed to ramp up the production of COVID-19 vaccines. You supported the joint efforts for the development and supply of personal protective equipment, respirators, and other medical equipment. You provided orientation to your members. You helped your companies to adjust to the situation, and you collaborated with regional and national governments. Now, today, I would like to use this opportunity to share with you the experience and the lessons learned of the task force for the industrial scale-up of COVID-19 vaccines that I had the pleasure to head up and work together with colleagues under the political leadership of Commissioner Thierry Breton. In February 2021, when the task force was established, the industrial challenge that was awaiting us was immense. Our researchers had actually done a phenomenal job in a record time, but we didn't have yet production capacity that would match this scientific achievement and live up to the needs that we had in Europe. So we started with a twofold objective in mind: to make the EU produce enough COVID-19 vaccines, and also to live up to Europe's global responsibility to supply vaccine doses beyond the European Union. The European industry managed actually an unprecedented scale-up of its production in record time. the EU became one of the largest COVID-19 vaccine producers in the world, with a production capacity that has now reached around 300 million doses per month by the end of last year, actually already, which has to be compared with just over 20 million at the beginning of 2021. So we increased by 15 times the initial capacity in just less than 1 year, actually. When our work started, we had made a pledge to produce 2 to 3 billion doses by the end of last year. By today, we have produced 3.4 billion doses, and 2/3 of them have been exported. I think during this past year, we've learned a lot from this experience. And of course, now it is about translating this into longer-term initiatives. How did we achieve this? We structured it around 5 work streams. The first one was to identify and remove vaccine production bottlenecks in the European Union. Vaccine production is a very complex process, and global supply chains at the time were facing an unprecedented demand when the vaccine production started. During our work, we identified over 150 bottlenecks, for instance, on bioreactor bags, vials, or lipids for mRNA vaccines. We acted as a help desk for vaccine producers and had daily contacts with them, but also, very importantly, with their suppliers to find solutions. For that, of course, it was necessary that we understand better and assess the capacity of manufacturers to deliver on their commitments, including, how can we secure the supply chain. So this is why we engaged closely with vaccine manufacturer and also performed site visits. In March 2021, we opened a regular dialogue with the United States, which then, in September led to the formalization of an US-EU joint COVID-19 manufacturing and supply chain task force to ensure really the smooth functioning of supply chains across the Atlantic. I think it is fair to say that compared to last year, the situation has improved significantly, even though sometimes unexpected shortages still keep popping up. For example, on cobalt-60, which is now, related to the sterilization of products. We continue our efforts in identifying vulnerabilities in critical supplies and materials. And again, we do that in close contact with key suppliers and also continue to work with our US counterparts. In early 2021, we didn't have a very clear view on the EU production capacity. And what was really needed was more transparency. So in the process, in our work, we identified over 300 plants in the EU throughout the whole supply chain, from raw materials to the final logistics. This was possible through the, again, direct and extensive exchanges with vaccine producers, including contract manufacturing organizations and contract and development and manufacturing organizations, and a variety of suppliers. We also worked on facilitating new partnerships on vaccines and therapeutics production, notably through 3 matchmaking events that took place in 2021. The first one was focusing on COVID-19 vaccine supply chains, because this was, the urgent need, the most urgent need. And then the 2 following ones dealt with the supply chains of COVID-19 therapeutics. I think this was well received by the industry. Well, there was a very good participation. And what we heard also as feedback from companies, it was useful to them to participate, to establish and possibly find new partners. And I would like to use this opportunity today also to thank our partners in the organization of the matchmaking, which were the European Clusters Alliance and the Council of European Bioregions. It was really great to collaborate with you. The 4th work strand concerned ensuring sufficient long-term manufacturing capacity in Europe. Because, in addition to addressing supply chain shortages, mapping our production, and stimulating industrial partnerships, this is also important to succeed. It is also, of course, then necessary to draw the lessons and be better prepared for the future. Now, we have, of course, the European Health Emergency Preparedness and Response Authority, Hera, which will certainly, and is already improving the union's development, manufacturing, procurement, and distribution of key medical countermeasures that are needed in case of a health emergency. What is also clear is that Hera has a very strong industrial dimension, and therefore it continues to be crucial to work closely with industry, to address bottlenecks, to recognize our dependencies, to identify critical production facilities by systematically mapping and monitoring supply chains, and to ensure that we have sufficient manufacturing capacities and production sites that are always ready to produce. And in this respect, I would like to refer to 3 initiatives that I believe are also of interest to you. The first one that I want to mention is the Joint Industrial Cooperation Forum, which is a part of Hera. And it aims at really ensuring these regular and systematic exchanges with industry and with member states. We have now established this forum and look very much forward to use it for this collaboration. And I'm very happy that the Council of European Bioregions and the European Cluster Alliance are participants and trusted partners in this endeavor. And our first meeting of the Joint Industrial Cooperation Forum will take place on Wednesday next week. The second project I want to mention is EU-FAB. This is a network of ever-warm production capacities that we want to have in place to be able to quickly activate and produce medical countermeasures for future public health emergencies. We, in particular, of course, at this stage, think of vaccines. And EU-FAB will really have to play a critical role to reserve production capacities and therefore be prepared, use the time for preparedness so that when a health emergency hits us, these production sites can be quickly activated and brought to produce whatever the medical countermeasure is that is needed. The third project is an investment in innovation, because the COVID-19 crisis made also clear that we cannot ignore the need to do more for our health ecosystems and to increase also their long-term resilience. And with this in mind, we are supporting member states as a facilitator, the Commission as a facilitator, for the development of an important project of common European interest, an 𝗖𝗋𝘂, in the area of health. The fifth work stream I want to mention is supporting global vaccine access and vaccine sharing efforts. I mentioned that the EU is by now the biggest exporter of COVID-19 vaccines, with over 2.4 billion doses exported to a total of 167 countries. But in that respect, I would like to stress, it actually has never been the intention of the Commission and the European Union, and it would not have been in Europe's interest to support third countries in this pandemic only by exporting part of its production, even if it's a substantial part. We also want to help the partners to develop and improve their own vaccine manufacturing, and I think in particular of Africa, because Africa depends massively, actually 99%, on imports of vaccine. So during the African Union European Union Summit in February of this year, we confirmed therefore the EU's support to Africa's ambition to become more autonomous in the field of vaccine production. And we have successfully organized an EU-Africa marketplace just recently, with them again a matchmaking efforts on pharmaceuticals, broadly more, covering vaccines, therapeutics, also diagnostics, and medical equipment, because this is a key building block of this effort. We had over 200 participants, half of them from Africa, with 33 medicine factories that through this matchmaking event had a possibility to liaise with EU partners in the field of pharmaceuticals, so to see whether there couldn't be new business relationships be established. We will also continue those efforts together with our US counterparts in the Joint Task Force, when we talk about the availability of COVID-19 vaccines, but also, for example, the ancillaries like auto-disabled syringes that you also need for a successful vaccine campaign. The third block that I want to touch upon today is the most important element, actually, which is the who. Who, has done all these efforts. We started, of course, the expertise and the commitment from many colleagues all over the Commission, colleagues from DG Competition, from DG Trade, from DG Santé, of course, from DG International Partnerships, but also, of course, since its existence from Hera. We had a very good cooperation with member states, where often you also had national task forces, looking into the issue of how to ramp up the production of vaccines. We were very, very well collaborating with them. The close contacts with industry are crucial. We can't do it without industry. And then, of course, also to get feedback from international stakeholders, international organizations, and again, the collaboration with the US. Now, it is also clear, despite all of us pulling together, there are many challenges ahead. The pandemic is not over. New variants may emerge that may become future health threats. Industry is working on, adapting vaccines, which will be needed to face these new variants. But I think what is also a key lesson that we have learned from this exercise of the task force is that public health and crisis preparedness need to be correlated with industrial capacity and with the resilience of supply chains. And over the past year, we saw really that we need a closer, a more integrated public-private partnership with industry. We have gained by now the necessary know-how and structures to address future challenges rapidly and satisfactorily. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Hubert, there, really setting out for us what has been going on. And of course, I'll remind people that you can again see the links in the chat on some of those points that Hubert was mentioning. Now, you mentioned, Hubert, also the cooperation with DG for International Partnerships, and of course, talking a little bit there about the pharmaceutical connections and so the work that's been going on with the EU and Africa. But to tell us more about international cooperation in health, I'm very pleased that we have Mar Martinez, who is an International Cooperation Officer from that DG in the European Commission. Mar, tell us a bit more, build on what Hubert has been outlining there, and why it is so important to think internationally.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, and certainly it's very pertinent that we are discussing resilience and preparedness. And I think it is because we have realized that we are not sufficiently prepared to tackle health crisis. And now what we are doing in DG INPA International Partnerships, among other things, is reinforcing our partnership with Africa. We have a number of initiatives in health. Maybe we can go to the second slide already. Nina, thanks. So here you see that in the context of the Global Gateway, which is our main package of collaboration, in particular with Africa, we have a number of initiatives, and we have this flagship number 2 that focuses on manufacturing and access to vaccines, medicines, and health technologies. So you realize that the scope goes far beyond COVID-19, and we are really targeting other diseases. We can move please to the next slide just to present the main dimension. So one of the main reasons why we supported and we designed this initiative was because the model in which the biotech and the pharma industry was based in the past decades had prioritized big volumes and concentration, particularly in some regions of the world. And we realized that there was a strong need for diversifying global value chains. This was in the interest of the European Union, but it was also in the interest of our partners in Africa and also in other regions of the world. And our partners in Africa were very vocal about the need to be self-sufficient. And I think it's really in the interest of everyone, again, to diversify value chains in these sectors: pharma, biotech, medtech. So with a view to be with a view to follow a sustainable model, we realized that we had a comprehensive, what we call a 360-degree approach. So that's why we put African actors in the case of Africa at the center, or our partners in other countries at the center. That's what we call the concentric circle model, starting with local actors at the center and then adding layers with other partners, including the Commission and what we call Team Europe, so our member states. Then we also need 3 main blocks, which is removing bottlenecks for local manufacturing and the supply side. But then this needs to be matched with the creation and defragmentation of the demand. And we also have, in our case, 6 main building blocks. I don't think we have time to go into details, but the reason why we have these 6 work streams is because in order to attract investment and in order to make imports, exports possible, there are a number of barriers that need to be removed. And these barriers include the need to upgrade the skills or remove trade-related barriers, improving regulatory frameworks, notably when it comes to strengthening medicines regulators in Africa. So this is the panorama we are working in. Let's go please to the next slide, just very briefly. This is just to say that we launched our local manufacturing and access initiative more than a year ago. It was announced in May last year by President von der Leyen at the G20 Health Summit in Rome. And this collaboration was reinforced again at the AU-EU Summit in February this year. And you see here a number of countries where we are either active or exploring options. We can go in more details later. I will jump into the next slide to give you the snapshot about the recent matchmaking event that we organized together with our dear colleagues from DG GROW. The DG 𝗵𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀 already referred to these, but here you have some specific details. This matchmaking event or marketplace and matchmaking event took place between the 18th of May and the 28th of June. As previously said, there were almost 600 participants. We already organized a couple of webinars to better understand the African markets and the opportunities for collaboration. And this was open to a broad range of participants, while at the same time was very targeted. So our objective was to have a variety of suppliers, and also we invited contract manufacturing organizations and a number of service providers as well. All the participants belong to different sub-industries. And now we are currently assessing the actual matching that took place, and we are receiving the testimonials. But this is really a breakthrough in the sense that this is the first time that we have been organizing this, meaning that our baseline was 0. So starting from 0 to now reaching almost 600 participants, and even for the actual B2B exchanges, over 200 participants. I think we should consider this a success. And also what was really interesting was that basically half of the participants came from Europe and half of them came from. So this was a very good experience for all for all of us. We will be drawing lessons and preparing the next steps, which certainly will involve continuing the dialogue with the private sector. And also very recently, our president again acknowledged the work that DG INPA is leading, and she announced a similar initiative for Latin America. This initiative will be mostly based on knowledge exchange and in the engagement with the private sector. We have innovative instruments as the European Fund for Sustainable Development, which could help to boost this collaboration with the private sector in the context of our partnership with Latin America and the Caribbean. And one concrete action that was announced on the 22nd of June by both our president, Ursula von der Leyen, but also by the president of Spain, was organizing a matchmaking to connect companies from both continents. We can proceed with the next slide. This is just a lot of information for you, but the only message that I would like you to retain is that in the case of the initiative for Africa, which is the more mature because it was launched a year ago, we have committed 1 billion from the EU budget, and together with Team Europe, so together with European Union member states and European development financial institutions, we have already mobilized over 900 million. We have two main focus, one at the continental level and the other one at the country level. And at the country level, we are notably working in South Africa, Rwanda, Senegal, and Ghana. There are more details in the next slides. We can go to the next slide. At the regional level, the Commission mobilized 40 million last year, and we are in the process of contracting with our implementers this amount. This will include several contracts. One of them will be with the World Health Organization, and through it we will be backing, and we are already supporting the mRNA Technology Transfer Hub, which you may know. It has started operations in South Africa and has several spokes all over Africa, but also in Latin America and in Asia. And through this contract with WHO, we also want to enhance the demand side. Among other things, we believe that we need to make the demand more predictable. So we will be using tools to enhance forecasting of needs, and we will also be strengthening the regulatory environment. Important to say that we have Team Europe on board, and we also have Team Africa, and the African Union, led by the Africa CDC, launched a partnership for African vaccine manufacturing that we are also supporting. They started with a focus on COVID-19 vaccines, but are expanding into other vaccines to tackle endemic diseases or diseases that are mostly prevalent in Africa, such as malaria or tuberculosis. And we are also providing technical assistance to the African Union and this PAVM. And now, currently, we are preparing, and it's expected by the end of 2022, a new financial decision of 20 million. And with this, we will be supporting the recently created African Medicines Agency. It was created in a treaty from 2019, but it only entered into force in November, and we expect that by mid-July, we will know where the AMA will be physically established. So we expect the Executive Council of the African Union to announce the headquarters of the African Medicines Agency. So the only model for the African Medicines Agency that is functional, the only model of regional collaboration is the European Medicines Agency and the network of European regulators. So our proposal is to twin AMA and EMA. And we have a few more slides. I will go just very briefly through them. The next slide is just a summary, as I said, of our support to concrete projects. In Senegal, we are supporting the Madiba project, which is the local manufacturing initiative promoted by the Institut Pasteur in Dakar. And this is a truly Team Europe effort because we have Germany, Belgium, France, and others on board. And it's also an international effort, and notably we have the IFC, which is the private sector branch of the World Bank, supporting this. In Ghana, we are working with the 𝗵 consortium, which is a consortium of 3 companies. And in Rwanda, we are also working hand in hand with BioNTech, which recently launched its manufacturing site in Rwanda. The fill and finish for the plant in Rwanda will be done in Ghana. But in both countries, our direct support as European Commission, as European Union, has to do with enhancing the regulatory environment. So we are not financing directly the companies, but we are improving the conditions. And in South Africa, there are a couple of projects. One with Aspen that has been supported by the banks of our member states and by the development agencies of our member states. And we are also supporting another project by BioVac, which is a public-private partnership in South Africa. So I think with this, I would like just to go very briefly. We have a joint intervention logic. We have a number of objectives. Maybe no need to stop here. I only just wanted to present to you that all these ideas are really oriented to achieve a number of results. So this is not just politics. This is also and especially a results-oriented initiative. So that's why we have this joint intervention logic and the concept evolution, which reflects the objectives directly pursued by the 𝗵𝗂 and the European Commission, and also the objectives pushed forward by our member states. And then in the next slide, you will see that we also have a kind of complex governance structure. As I said, we want to have the local actors at the center. The main initiative is in Africa, so we need to have the African Union at the center. And we will have a high-level steering committee, but then we will also have an operational structure led by the 𝗵𝗂 in coordination with other Commission services, in coordination with member states, and we will also have a support service. So maybe just one final word, and we can go to the last slide. And of course, we can answer questions if you have. We don't want to overwhelm you with too much information. Just to say that what has been a main lesson learned for us is that we need to engage with a variety of stakeholders. Of course, we have CSOs and patients are as important counterparts. And we have the academia, researchers, and international partners, global health initiatives, but certainly we need the private sector. We have an EU-Africa business forum that has been our major platform. So we will continue to perform different activities in the context of the EABF, EU-Africa Business Forum. We also have sometimes bilateral meetings. But the key message is that particularly in these sectors, if we want to be better prepared and if we want to be resilient, what we can best do is enhancing the enabling environment and improving the business conditions. And we need to attract and engage the private sector. And our intention is that all of you interested in this domain feel more secure and better prepared to engage with counterparts in third countries outside the European Union. We count on your expertise, and we certainly believe that many solutions come not only from the public sector, but also from the private sector. So thank you very much for
Thank you, Mar. I know there's an awful lot to get through there. Thank you so much. And I know those were very information dense slides. So perhaps we can find a way to get those to participants if you didn't manage to take it all in, as Mara was squeezing quite a lot of time into a lot of information there into our limited time this morning. Which means we are time now for our panel discussion. We're going to look again at what we've learned, take stock of where we're at, and look to the future. So I'm delighted to introduce to you 𝗍𝗂𝘂𝘀𝗁𝗂𝗃, who is the Chief Executive Officer at 𝗯𝗶 𝗂𝗂𝘀𝗁𝗂𝗃, Francesco 𝗍𝗂𝘂𝟂, Business Development and Communication and Projects at Toscana Life Sciences Foundation, and 𝗍𝗂𝘂𝘂𝗀𝗃 is Network Manager at the Council of Europe Bioregions. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could switch your cameras on so we can all see you. And perhaps, Ignacio, I might be able to start with you to give me a very brief taking stock of where we're at. Again, I see we have a slide prepared here to give us some outlines of what you think we need to be looking at.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone. I'm here representing both my company, 𝗍𝗂𝘂𝘀𝗁𝗂𝗃. I'm the CEO of 𝗍𝗂𝘂𝘀, but I'm also part of the board of BioCat, representing the bioregion in Catalonia for the biotech industry. So our company has 92 years of history, but I'm more focused on the 92 years ahead of us than on the 92 years behind us. Family-led company, also listed in the Spanish stock exchange. We're based in Barcelona, around 240 million euro in terms of sales, and 1,200 people, mainly female, 60% females, working with us, mainly in Spain, but also in France, in Sweden, in Portugal, in Belgium, in the UK, in other parts of Europe. We have 50% of our total turnover is focused in what we call our pharmaceutical technologies division. So basically, we develop and manufacture pharmaceutical products for ourselves and for third parties, and mainly we do that in the area of injectable products and in the area of even lyophilized technology, which is a specific technology. In 2018, we decided to invest to build a new manufacturing capacity for manufacturing injectable products in Barcelona. At the time, it was difficult for us even to find the resources, the capital, to invest in those facilities, because people were asking us whether it made sense to invest in industrial facilities within Europe, as at that time we had the idea that probably it made more sense to invest in other parts of the world. We thought that it made sense that the technology linked to the manufacturing of injectable pharmaceutical products can be part of and can be can stay within Europe. So it was hard for us, but we get the fund. We got the funds. We started the investment. By the end of 2020, our new site, high technology, high speed, high production, high capacity site for injectable products was up and ready. And obviously, you know that by the end of 2020, there was a huge demand to manufacture COVID vaccines, which obviously are injectable products. So we were there. We announced the signature of a technological transfer agreement with Janssen or Johnson & Johnson to manufacture their Janssen vaccine within the European perimeter and borders. And I would say that probably it was one of those decisions taken back in 2017 or 2018 that made sense in 2021 to work against fight against the pandemic. I can share you later a little bit more on our role and what we did initially to fight against the need of essential medicines, because during 2020 the focus was on essential medicines that were required for the critical care units to keep patients with respirators and people half slept or which are usually medicines that are essential but are usually manufactured in other parts of the world, mainly in Asia, very cheap products. But at the time where there was a pandemic and there was a huge demand increase all over the world, the ability to manufacture within the European borders was critical. In that sense, that was our basic work and concentration in 2020. A lot of cooperation and a lot of discussions with the Spanish authorities and also European authorities and other embassies and other countries. And then in 2021, it was the COVID vaccines project. But I can elaborate a little bit more next.
Absolutely. I think we're going to talk a bit about those sorts of supporting structures and, of course, the international dimension as we talk to our other panelists as well. Francesco, give me, in a snapshot, what Toscana Life Sciences has learned throughout the last unpleasant couple of years.
Okay, so basically I represent this Toscana Life Science Foundation, which is a pretty active bioincubator in the middle of Italy. We also manage the life science regional cluster, and I represent today also 𝗖𝗹𝘂𝘀𝘁𝗲𝗿, which is the National Life Science Cluster, and InnovUp, which is the National Association for Innovation Ecosystem and Startups. By the way, I'm also a proud member of 𝗬𝗲𝘂𝘀𝗁 since the beginning and former vice president. So as an introduction, I think this is it. I know that we have time constraints.
Thank you, Francesco. Anais, give me again your kind of quick entry point, if you like, to this discussion.
Yeah, so nice to be here. I'm Anais Lekovic, so I manage the Council of European Bioregions. Just I think the most important here is the map. We are about 40 clusters and actually growing a couple of new members this year again. So you can see we work with clusters all across Europe that are involved in the life science sector. So many members in like I put here, just our main work is to connect, just like clusters do at local level. We do that at EU level. And I think especially throughout the last years and the crisis, we've seen how cluster can really enable the connection, finding solution, being proactive, and basically our mainstreams, let's say the main interests of our members are related to those that I put there: digital health, medtech, biomanufacturing. But again, I think our work in what we do at 𝗬𝗲𝘂𝘀𝗁 with our clusters, and for example, Francesco and some of us here in the audience is to connect and try to find solutions for companies, but also for regional governments.
Well, thank you. Francesco, to come back to you, I know Ignacy mentioned the sort of, if you like, international dimension and the sort of structural support that's needed. Do you identify any gaps that were there that have been closed, or do you see that there might still be more needed in terms of support looking to the future in the event of a second pandemic, or even just in the waves of continuing need for resilience?
Okay, so thank you for the question. I think that many points have been touched already by Hubert Gsempsz, but generally speaking, I think that the major bottleneck is still production capacity. We have done a lot across Europe. I like to stress the importance of cluster collaborations and cluster activities, because exactly in this kind of situation, this is the key to tackle these kind of emergencies and try to find solutions. First of all, because we have the connection with industry. Everybody is saying that, and the pandemic taught everybody how much we need production capacity, and production capacity stands with industry and stands with the private sector. Also, Mar before said many times how important it is to have connection with industry. So I think that this is the major, I mean, we may say many other things, of course, but the major constraint, I think it's production capacity. We should bear in mind from a little bit of technical implications, because we have been lucky to have the mRNA technology ready to start, and we shouldn't forget that without the mRNA technology, if you look at the development of traditional vaccines, they have still to come on the market, and you can imagine what could have been the situation without a vaccine in the last 2 years. So we have been lucky that the science was ready. We have been lucky that industry and public sector could work together pretty quickly. Some countries were more ready than others, but definitely the gap to fill, and I hope that later on we will have more time to say other things, but the gap to fill is still, again, production capacity.
Ignacio, I'd be interested to get your reaction to that. Do you agree that that still is the missing link, or are there others?
I would say that I agree with Francesco's words. I liked very much hearing to Director General Hubert Gams and his words and the way he explained the strategy from DG Growth and the European Commission. I believe that investing in health will always have a threefold results. So in one side, investing in health within the European Union we will always be ready to provide better services to our population. And it has been clear during the pandemic that when the population does not have the right health system and the right health solutions, it can generate a huge crisis and a huge social problem. Second, investing in health also generates the know-how, the research, the development, the innovation, the patents, the value creation in general, the startups. So vaccines come from the RNA technology. So messenger RNA technology was developed before that vaccines were able to get to the market. But third point, investing in healthcare also has the industrial side of it. So that's what Francesco was just referring, is capacity. So, but it's not just capacity to take care of the population or capacity. It's a highly educated or trained industry. Is a gender equal industry. Is a technological industry. Is an advanced industry. Is a clean and sustainable industry. Is an industry that generates or can generate. We were listening before from an international perspective. It can generate exports. So it's the sort of industry that every single country would love and desire. So my point is, pandemic has showed that investing in kilometer zero, let's say a pharmaceutical industry or a health industry within the European borders has proved to be good for the population, good for the economy, good for the innovation and research and development, value creation, and also good from a pure industry workforce generation of workplaces, good quality and highly trained experts, etc. So that's my point. Is we need to continue investing in this industry, because most of the technologies that brought COVID, especially COVID vaccines, RNA, messenger RNA, but also gene therapy or viral vector technology are here to stay. And we need to understand that this will stay in our portfolio of tools to fight new diseases, no matter if it's pandemics, but also oncological fighting or bacterial fighting. So that's, most of those technologies are here to stay. So it's the time to invest in this industry within Europe.
Anaïs, let me turn to you. Of course, healthcare is not a zero-sum game. We're not in competition, if you like, with other parts of the world. But how would you assess the EU's position? How well prepared are we?
That's a big question. I think obviously it took us by storm 2 years ago. But if I can speak up from our own experience at 𝗬𝗂𝘂𝘀, and I would say also thanks to the European Clusters Alliance, I found the reactivity turned into proactivity. meaning that all the clusters, we gathered, obviously it was a big crisis situation, and that's why I showed the map before, because on the ground, the clusters really connected to companies, and when I see 𝗍𝗂𝘂𝗀𝗄𝗃 here talking, I think I was one of the examples that, okay, let's connect this company with another one. There were a lot of activities organized. We had those webinars every morning. So I would say, yes, obviously from the initial moment of, okay, what do we do? What can we do? It really became clear that at least from our end, the clusters, the bioregions were really well connected to the ground. And then we could give that message back to the European Commission and to let's say, policymaker. And that's on the one hand. The second thing is, I would say in terms of preparedness, we are better prepared now after this huge crisis, but the only worry is, okay, are we going to, to go back down to just a normal regular and forget about this? So I think what 𝗍𝗂𝘂𝘀𝗃 said in terms of lessons learned, and how we can be better prepared for the future is very important. We need to invest more. Also, the question of sovereignty has not really been discussed, but we've seen, so 𝗬𝗹 has done with the EIT Health and EIT Manufacturing and biomanufacturing landscape. So understanding really what's going on in Europe in terms of capacity. We're about to publish the second wave very soon on like the rest of Europe. And what we've seen is there's a lot of, education gap, for example. Innovation is great in Europe. There are a lot of very qualified people, but when it comes to the scale up, when it comes to, big production, and I think 𝗍𝗂𝘂𝘀𝗃 also mentioned that, this is where we have a, then American or Asian investor coming, investing a lot, which is great, but then the European kind of IP is just going away. So I think in terms of fairness, we need to support better the European ecosystems, because there is a lot that can be done, and I think it's been shown. So just a quick answer to a big, broad question.
It is, I know, and it's not just in this sector. We hear a lot about the need for better scale-up functionality in Europe. Francesco, let me ask you about, Anais alluded to the fact that we had to react quickly in the pandemic, but to build on that, how stable or how long-lasting do you think these new connections will be? Obviously, we don't just want knee-jerk reactions in the case of a crisis. We want to build the new buzzword of the day is resilience. Do you think many of them will stick around even as we go back into a lull, if you like, between crises? And you're on mute.
I think that the challenge is exactly that one. So we need to keep our connection alive every day. So I think that the major lesson that we have learned from the pandemic is that if you are ready with a network of connections, you will be more effective. And so I've read also many articles and books in this period about this, and this is the key. And that's why, again, I go back to the importance of cluster organizations, because this is what we do every day. So we keep connections, we keep our network alive. And when I talk about network, I talk about industries, as I said, but also universities, academy, and investors, and supply chain companies. So we are always ready to activate this network and react. So from my point of view, this is the most important thing, on top of, as I said, the investment, public investment in production capacity, which has been the question since a long time. I was involved in pandemic preparedness for flu something like 20 years ago, and this was still the question at that time. Now the countries that have reacted better are US, Germany, that from the day zero put hundreds of millions on the table to support private companies to develop the vaccine. At the end of the day, this was the story. So just to summarize, keep our networks alive, and let me say to the European Commission to support as much as possible cluster organizations, because we are doing a very dirty job every day, and sometimes we are not funded to do so. Now, fortunately, we have the Council of European Bioregions that is, in a way, taking the scene, fortunately, and also connecting with the European Commission, putting the light on the cluster organizations.
Well, I think what you're saying is that we don't want to go back to starting from zero every time there is some sort of crisis, that it needs to be underlying structures there to build on. And Ignacio, I want to bring you in as well, because I want to talk about relationships to other sectors. And I know you work in the pharmaceutical technologies, but several years ago, the average member of the general public didn't know what PPE was. I mean, we've had a very steep learning curve for everyone. So I'm thinking like sectors like textiles, injectables. What are the needs there from that perspective, rather than just purely the vaccines?
I would say that today sectors and industries are very much linked, and that's something very obvious. And Asa also brought it. I think that historically speaking, I mean, over the last maybe 10, 20, 50, 25 years, we have traded price for sovereignty somehow, or we have traded price for less control on the value chain. And this is part of what has happened over the last pandemic crisis. I would say that pharmaceutical industry has been able to make sure that essential medicines were there in hospitals. There has been no lack of essential medicines anywhere in Europe, but there has been a lack of masks or other elements which were just textile. And probably we had traded this price sovereignty equation. I would say at the same time, I would like to break a positive message for DG growth, especially within the European Commission. My feeling as a European citizen has always been that the European Commission was very much focused in policy making, but I have seen with my own eyes and experience that the European Commission and DG growth was there when it was required to be actually actionable and make things happen. Our experience has been very positive in that respect. I see now we are seeing initiatives like the matchmaking initiative. I would say that probably most of us, we know each other, but it's good to have this sort of pan-European opportunities to get to know other companies within your same industry or within touching industries in Europe. EU FAB is a fantastic initiative to keep warm production reserved capacity for the future. 𝗖𝗄𝘂𝘀, I think it's a fantastic program to finance innovative or important projects within Europe. And at the same time, what I have seen is that at certain point, early 2021, we found problems to actually supply ourselves with very basic components for the manufacturing process. So in our case, for example, we suffered from filters before 𝗵𝗂𝘂𝘀𝗁𝗃 was mentioning plastic bags and for the bioreactors, etc. But our experience was with filters. Filters were being manufactured in the US, and US closed their borders the same way as India closed their borders early on in the pandemic. So the ability of the European Commission to work politically with our partners around the world to make sure that those long value chains were not broken and that actually those products could travel around the world, crossing borders that were closed, was extremely powerful, was extremely important. It's a lot of effort that was done at that time, and that probably from the outside we have not been able to see. And I just wanted to mention it because I think it deserves all of our gratitude and for the effort that was done back there.
And what's your take on that? I'm interested in this sort of supply chain angle and the need to collaborate internationally. And I know, because we're running out of time, but I know that will also feed into that discussion we're going to have with regard to the Ukrainian situation.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I will pick up on what Ignacio said in, the cross-sectorial approach. So on the one hand, I think this crisis, what it helped is really to understand that we depend a lot on each other too, even within Europe. And it's very important to really connect the different ecosystems. So not, everyone just working in their own little spaces, but really to connect. And I think that that was a very positive thing to learn and to put in action. I think when we talk about value chain, and Ignacy mentioned, I mean, there are some obviously technical part, but let's not forget we're in the life science sector, and I see also in the audience, I mean, it's from the manufacturing the drug or the material to also the patient itself, and that also means the hospitals, that mean the public healthcare. So not forget that we're a very long value chain, and it's important that all the actors, whenever needed, are connected and work together. And I think, again, this is one key lesson. And for us, this is what we try to do at, let's say, European level. So connect the different clusters, but also connect the different elements and companies and entities across the value chain. And that's very important. And again, the connection and the willingness to actually work together is there. And there are many other challenges, not just the pandemic preparedness, but the green transition, as you mentioned, also before the resilience. How do we do that? In the life science sector, this is also like very complicated challenges because of the regulation, because of many other issues. So we just need to be sure that we are connected. We just need to be sure that we also have the means. If Europe really wants to, drive and be a leader, for example, in green transition, we need the means to do that. And it's important that that we're all in that together.
Thank you very much, Francesco. I'm going to give you a final 30 seconds before we wrap up. What would you like to see for the future?
Sorry, what?
For future resilience, what is it that, if you had one big ask, what would you still like to see?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably easy to say, but we shouldn't forget. And I'm talking to the policymakers, first of all. We were talking before the pandemic about the new paradigm of healthcare, the 4P, prevention, participated, personalized, predictive, and so on. I think that the pandemic has taught us how important it is. So prevention is better than cure, but not even better is the way to approach healthcare in the future. So again, investment in the healthcare, in life sciences, and for policymakers, keep those networks alive. And of course, a cluster organization play a very important role in this.
Well, thank you very much, all three of our panelists. I know it's been a whistle-stop tour through a very complex situation. We're going to move now on to another very complex and concerning situation, and that is the ongoing situation in Ukraine and what the impacts are going to have on the healthcare system. We've got three speakers now who are going to give us an update on where they're finding themselves. So we'll start with 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, who is the head of the Rivne Medical Cluster. And 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, I think you're going to tell us about the general needs in healthcare with regard to clusters and the regional cooperation challenges. So I will hand over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, colleagues. I'm glad to see you all. My name is 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀. I am a head of president of Rivne Interregional Medical Cluster and advisor of the Mayor of Rivne of medical issue. Our cluster is only 1 year old, and we have united leading hospitals and organization of the field of healthcare in the Western Ukraine. Now the topic of COVID is not actual in Ukraine because we have the war with Russia and we have many other problems of our country in healthcare. Next slide, please. These problems we can support on 3 points: the needs of the hospitals in the safer area, and the need of the hospitals near the area of hotlines, and training of people to act of emergency situation. Next, please. The first block is the hospitals in the Western Ukraine, where the hotline do not take place, almost or destroyed of structures of injuries during massive attacks of bombs of Russia. In these hospitals, despite the war, healthcare reform continue. New technological intervention and latest method of treatment are introduced. The most necessary of them are new innovation equipment and training of personnel to use it. Exchange of experience and internationship of cardiac surgery, oncology, surgery, traumatology, and other are also important. With the war, the development of rehabilitation, both physician of psychological, became especially necessary because we have more human number wounded, both among the military and civilian. There is a need to develop a production of modern protheses so the patient can usually survive them. It is very important block, and our members of our international medical clusters stay in Western Ukraine and can provide innovation medicine helpful for our citizens all over Ukraine. And next block, next please, is a situation in the hospitals in the east of Ukraine, east and south of Ukraine, and there is destroyed during the coastlines. They need interregional reconstruction, taking into account the change structure, the population of the number, taking into account a possibility of developing a new network of medical institutions that be able to cover the full spectrum of medical services. An important component of Prepare aid provision is the creation of modular help hospital that can be deployed on a hour of where the wounded and traumatized from the front line could be taken. This problem can say more my colleague Dmitro that have a practice knowledge of frontline in Ukraine. Once upon a time, when we were training in tactical medicine in British instructors, they told us that every 6 kilometers they have such a hospital, a modular hospital, and the wounded would be development as soon as possible. It is where, and this appears to both military personnel and civilian living in the territories where the hotlines are taking place. I will put a link on the chart where you can show the destroyed of the Mariupol maternity hospital with the Russian bombs, and you can understand well that what our hospitals need in this territory. Next, please. And the third block, it is very important block for our society because we haven't another training center of another any training to the civilian people. It is a training to the people to act in an emergency situation, in the combat condition. In case of injury, training of doctors in protocols for providing assistance to the injury, such as ILS, UTLS. This has become possible only with a systematic creating of training center with certificate and motivate instructors who can train people. One of the members of our cluster, this is NGO 𝗧𝗲𝗂𝗀𝗃, has 8 years of experience of training the civilian population and the military, implementing systematic changes in education and school and decrease population groups. But only they also lack funding to create such a center and to make a system support the people. With the beginning in the war with Russia, Ukrainian medicine faced a number of problems. And this is not 𝗪𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗃𝗃. We have only several people who save the COVID now. We have a problem with equipment, with innovation equipment in our hospitals, and we need to build in our new hospitals in the east and southern Ukraine. And also as a training center, because this war we have many times, and we need to teach our people to react in the emergency situation, like Israel maybe. My colleague 𝗵𝗂 can say more about the medicine in the front line and needs of our hospitals and our evacuation, and in the last speech. Thank you for much.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. Some striking thoughts there to carry with us. And I'm struck that we all did see the horrific images on the news, and obviously it's a unique situation, but I am also struck that some of the things that we've seen happening around the world with regard to COVID may indeed be practicable in terms of building modular hospitals and so on. So maybe there are some lessons to be learned. We're going to hear now from 𝗪𝗂𝘀𝗁𝗃, who is the CEO of MedStar. And Sergei, I think you're going to give us the perspective from a medical equipment manufacturer side. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. As a medical businessman, I am 32 years in this business, and our background in medical technology, construction, turnkey equipment of more than 2,000 medical centers and more than 100 hospitals in 26 years of my history. And of course, current situation in Ukraine shows, please next, shows that we have two big problems. One problem is continuous destroy of medical institutions, of clinics in territory, first of all in eastern side, and of course now rockets falling all over the country. So it becomes dangerous to western, central and western Ukraine also. And other problem is overloading of clinics by internal refugees. So these both create a big disaster in healthcare, providing healthcare to citizens. Please next. And for current situation, the equipment, capital equipment, first of all, medical equipment, during the war, until it is not finished, should, my personal opinion, should be used like in modular or mobile on track. First of all, diagnostic equipment like X-ray, like mammography, like CT, MRI. I'm pretty sure that should be used in mobile tracks, because we all know, professionals know that purchase and installation of this capital equipment takes months, and next morning after starting of new site, a rocket may arrive at the moment. Of course, it will become very highly demanded, and it will become very important after finish of war in Ukraine. In this case, our Ministry of Health already creating health infrastructure recovery plan. I think yesterday it was also included in Lugano talks, and I heard about request for €5 billion or dollar to medical equipment renovation in Ukraine. But these programs, these projects should run after end of war. At the moment, medical equipment should be supplied, first of all, to, of course, western side of Ukraine, but big capital equipment, I think, should be used as a portable or mobile units. Please, next slide. What is interesting? We, as a telehealth developer and medical equipment for telemedicine producer and distributor, what we face last month in Ukraine, this is the increasing demand for portable diagnostic point-of-care testing devices, which can provide immediate result. Why this is so important? Because the logistic for, first of all, for laboratory diagnostic is complicated. A lot of the biggest, let's say, the biggest laboratory companies keep expensive equipment in centers like Kyiv, and in a peaceful time, it was perfectly organized, and logistic of tests, samples, examples of blood and others was 1-2 days from all Ukraine. Now, to collect test samples and to perform correct laboratory diagnostic means sometimes complicated. Also, as I told, overload in the western side of Ukraine, overload of medical facilities by refugees, also means then that diagnostic should be done in one visit, not to wait 1 month or 1 week when it will be, if the result arrive, and then next visit, nobody know where this person will appear in 1 week or 1 month. So the best for person and the best for doctor is to perform on-site diagnostic immediately in one visit and appoint correct and on-time treatment. Please, next. And next slide. Such kits already were purchased according to the project of rural healthcare improvement, and it shows very nice results. Now they are growing in work. Unfortunately, in the eastern side of Ukraine, in many regions that were occupied or bombed, a big part of such equipment is lost already. But those who keep it, they use it 100 times a month because it allows to perform diagnostic and to provide remote consultation. Also, remote consultation is key functionality because a lot of professionals left eastern side of Ukraine. We understand. Please, next slide. This is just short introduction of diagnostic features, and it is easy to understand that these instruments, tools can do immediate diagnostic. Please, next page. The most important is point of care, analyzer, cardiac markers, hormones, kidney, liver functionality, portable hemoglobin and lipid test, and blood cells, ultrasound, which can be used now by trained middle personnel, technicians, nurses also. So it solves two problems. One problem is lack of logistic for diagnostic, as I told before, and second problem is lack of professionals on site. Next, please. Of course, it is a big opportunity for medical equipment manufacturer to participate in the future processes of renovation of Ukraine. And my personal opinion is that today it is a time for portable solutions, portable equipment, portable instruments, which can be also saved from rocket bombing easily. Thank you very much.
Sergey, thank you very much indeed. I think you've set out very clearly some of the key challenges there that you're facing and that Ukraine is facing at the moment. Dmitry Rusnak is an anesthetist at the 𝗵𝗂𝘂𝘀 First Volunteer Mobile Hospital. Dmitry, I'm keen to hear from you to build on even what we've heard Sergey say, that there are unique challenges, particularly with a displaced population, that go along with providing regular healthcare alongside dealing with the trauma of the attacks. So tell us a bit about the situation in hospitals, including also the impact on staff and on medical professionals.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me? I think that, yeah, that there is a connection. Right now I'm on the side. I'm sorry for such drama, which I've got here on my background, but it's like here in the Donbass region. Yeah, let me introduce myself briefly as it's possible. I'm an anesthetist. I studied in Odessa, and after that I moved to Germany and practiced there for 2.5 years as an anesthetist. And because of full-scale invasion of Russia, I was back to Ukraine because I wanted to provide my healthcare for my people and for my country. I'm a civilian medic, but you see that I have all that protective equipment, and that because let me tell you briefly, just to understand that. Currently, we have that's a genocide of Ukrainian nation. And the Russian forces, they are trying to aim medical infrastructure directly, and they're trying to the targets are our vehicles. You know, that's why we have to be camouflaged. That's why we don't have red crosses in our cars. So elderly, children, they just step by step they are destroying with their artillery. Our villages, our houses in the in the eastern part of the Ukraine. And me currently, I was involved in the medical transportation of 6 𝗧𝗹𝘂𝘀𝗁 people. Nothing special. They were that's just lightly injured people or with some kind of internal diseases. They were moved to the consultation to on-site doctors. And as I told, as the previous speaker told, there is a lack of educated people who can provide that kind of consultation or even treatment for the simple things, because lots of people, lots of trained civilian doctors moved from these regions. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's a little bit inconvenient situation for me, and probably I can like be not real in one to hold on the topic. I just wanted to come back to the genocide of Ukrainians. I just want to explain you that the best help which the world can provide to us, you will not believe us. That's the weapon and the military help, because it's like in a combat medicine. The best thing combat medic can provide on a field or on a battlefield is just to suppress his enemy with a fire. And after that, when there is no combat action, you can provide some medical help. And the same time is for the country. When we have full-time invasion here, you cannot provide real good medical high-quality help. You have to throw away the occupiers, the enemy, from the country, and after that you can resuscitate the medical care system. So basically, from my perspective as a small anesthetist, I can tell you what like basic things do we need. It's like ventilators, the vehicles, the ambulances, the equipment for sedation, anesthesia, intubation. As I told you, ventilators, portable ventilators, perfuser pumps. I don't know. We have almost like great luck on cardiac monitors, like patient monitors in our hospitals. We don't have very often we don't have them on our cars. We do need point of care chemical analyzers for AGB, for blood gases, for electrolytes. and for example, blood products or some substitutions for them, like fibrinogen or something like that, because we've got a lot of traumatic patients to stabilize them. Let me see. And also, we do need educators because our system of medical education, it was not prepared. They didn't prepare us as medical providers for such challenges. We need someone who can explain us the best way to manage with polytraumatic patients. We need educators who and managers who can explain us how can we how can we organize the correct network in already that crisis regions, and educators and managers who can explain us how to organize the logistics. Let me see. Yeah. Probably, do you have some? Yeah, I know. Yeah, there was an idea to provide us some kind of mobile hospitals. I'm sorry, mobile hospitals or that kind of facility who can on-site provide some healthcare. They unfortunately do not pass for. They do not much for the crisis regions, because we've got already experiences. Some kind of mobile hospitals that were bombed when they were closer than 100 kilometers to the front line. So first of all, we need cars, we need logistics to take the people, civilians and military service men from the site, and support of our healthcare system in the regions which are currently, I would say, more or less safe, or yeah, like that.
Dimitri, thank you very much for taking the time. We really do appreciate it. We know it's very stressful for you there. And so we hope we can get your message to the right people, and keep up the great work. We certainly hear you loud and clear here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Stay very much indeed. You too.
Goodbye.
Bye. And thank you indeed to all three of our speakers giving us that update on the Ukrainian situation as it's ongoing. I think we all got a sense there of how very immediate the difficulties are at the moment. That is us almost at the point of wrapping up. I am going to quickly hand back to Nina Hopman to tell us, Nina, the funding opportunities that people can look at over the next few weeks. And I know we've got some deadlines coming up, so I'll give that over to you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and thank you to all the speakers. We would just want to share some open calls that are related to the topics we've discussed today. The first one, access and integration of heterogeneous health data for improved healthcare in disease areas of high unmet public health needs. The objective is to provide a scalable platform for the seamless integration or linkage of these diverse data, and develop tools to allow the data to be used in clinical care. This is a call with the deadline of the 20th of September 2022, and is published on the funding and tenders portal of the European Commission. The next one is setting up harmonized methodology to promote the uptake of early feasibility studies for clinical and innovation excellence in the European Union. The research and innovation action is expected to deliver results, including a methodology for the early feasibility studies in the EU, facilitate compliance with the relevant legislation, and a stakeholder network. Also a call with the deadline of the 20th of September under the Horizon Europe Framework Program, and published on the funding and tenders portal. You can just click on the link in the chat. There's also a call relevant to the topic, which is better understanding of citizens' behavior and psychological reactions in the event of a disaster or crisis situation. Proposals should contribute to the achievement of either or enhancing understanding and improved knowledge and situational awareness of disaster-related risk for citizens, and or more efficient cross-sectorial, cross-disciplines, cross-border coordination of the disaster risk management cycle. This is a call with the deadline of the 23rd of November. Please click on the link to find out more. Similarly, there's a call for enhanced citizen preparedness in the event of a disaster or crisis-related emergency, with a couple of possible outcomes that should be addressed: the design of preparedness actions linking together might deliver interventions, development of effective means of communication, improved early warning systems, demonstrations exercises, building a culture of disease preparedness, and or the development of evidence-based assessment methods. Also, the deadline is the 23rd of November this year, published on the Funding and Tenders portal. And there is a tender open to assess the lesson learned from the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccination campaigns. The tender is for a study aims to assess key lessons learned from the rapid and massive rollout of the vaccines authorized for use in the EU EEA across the key components, dimensions of the vaccination design and delivery program. Tender has an estimated total amount of 60,000. The deadline to express your interest is today at 4 o'clock, and the indicative round of the procedure is from tomorrow. You can find it published on e-tendering. Click on the link in the chat. And we also have 2 funding opportunities from cluster partnerships that we wanted to share with you. First one is the Urban Tech Open Call. Urban Tech is a project that will support SMEs and startups in developing new or significantly improved products and services that address challenges in health tech, green tech, and smart city. You can apply for hackathons or cascade funding with different voucher schemes. The overall budget under this project is 2 million. The deadline to apply is the 14th of September, and you find more information on the project website. Just click on the link in the chat. And last but not least, to announce that the deadline for the first Amunet call was extended. So the new deadline is the 20th of July. And Amunet is looking for SMEs to exploit the innovation of advanced lightweight materials for the automotive, aerospace and aeronautics, energy and building sectors. SMEs can receive up to 60,000 of grant, 120,000 per project. More information also on the website. Click just in the link in the chat if you're interested or want to share this with others. And what we also wanted to announce is that this was the last EU cluster talks for this summer. So we will return after a summer break. Save the date already for the 7th of September when we will return.
Thank you very much, Nina. Lots for people to think about. I think for that 7th of September, we're already thinking about things like biomaterials, circularity, industrial manufacturing. So more interesting topics. Again, don't forget to register. And of course, you can look at any of the clusters webinars in the series by clicking on the link in the chat. And you will find in that chat links to all the things we've been talking about today. So don't forget to click there before you sign off. With that, I wish everyone a lovely day, safe holidays if you're taking them, and we hope to see you again in September.